All right, we're going to give it a couple seconds to reach all of the airways and internet tubes and all of the technical magic, and we are live. Welcome everyone to episode 6 of the Level Up the Wealth podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Marcus Howard. Remember, if you want to understand how you can use video games to level up your brand's engagement, I have a free training. You see the link at the bottom, bit.ly/game-driven brand growth. We'll teach you about why 2/3 of your community likely plays video games. Your brand's community likely plays video games. And we're here to talk about games and mental health. First, Mario, please say hello to everyone.
What's going on, y'all? Hope all is well. Mario Payne in beautiful, rainy, but beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. I'm just here to be alive and here to share the knowledge that we're going to get with these two. So happy to be here.
Excellent. And thank you for joining us, our guests for tonight, Vanessa and Michael. We appreciate you making time to be on the show. Happy to learn about BetterPlay and everything mental health and gaming.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So you tell us a little bit about what you did before you got into BetterPlay Studios, and then from there, want to understand just some insights around mental health and the work you all are doing.
Yeah, so what we did before BetterPlay, so for most of my professional life, I ran marketing teams. So I did that in higher ed for over a decade. I was an assistant vice president of marketing. I helped build a startup that was digital marketing focused and got that to the point of sale for the owners. And before that, I was just a dude who played in rock bands and liked philosophy in my 20s. So I don't know if that counts, but that's what I did before BetterPlay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I was actually a middle school teacher. I absolutely loved it. I burned out pretty hard, but I taught all over the country, and then I got a master's in computer information systems. So Michael and I have worked together for off and on for about 6 years, and it's been great.
Great. So I have some questions because we know mental health and some people sometimes blame gaming. Mental health on gaming because, of course, the negative things that we do to fighting games. But tell us about the mission and the values of your mental health company.
Yeah, so we're convinced that video games are powerful, right? So they're powerful with mental health. Can they be negative? Certainly. Can they be positive? Absolutely. So we're predicated on this thesis that video games are hidden in plain sight as a solution for this terrible crisis that we have globally and certainly in America with the mental health. Mm-hmm. There are certain mechanics that have been kind of more common in video games, particularly mobile games. They've been borrowed from like the gambling world, kind of addictive mechanics, loot box mechanics, things like that. It's either that or really toxic social communities that are really the driver of poor mental health. When you strip those things away, video games are actually pretty good for you. And Vanessa, you've done a lot of reading on this as well.
Sure. So one of the things too that I think is really important to note is that when people struggle with quote unquote gaming addiction, the psychologists on our team and others that we've spoken with have said that if you treat the underlying mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, those addictive levels of gaming tend to return to a level that's normal for that family system. Now, obviously some families game more than others and every family is different, but it's important not to just say that, my kid has a gaming addiction, and really just try to treat the mental health issues that are at play, and then gaming tends to return to a normal level.
When do you guys see, or what's the earliest, or okay.
Oh, we lost him there for a second. He'll be back.
Okay.
I appreciate you sharing that. I've talked about this on LinkedIn a handful of times. My son does not react well to video game. I'll describe it as withdrawal, for lack of a better term. That's not the scientific term, and he's 5, so he's certainly not addicted to it. But I think the engagement for him is just too stimulating. And so we've actually had to, he used to play video games in here. My office used to be the game room. And so we put the TV in the garage because he just wouldn't regulate back afterwards. And which is really tough for me because I grew up playing video games. Like my earliest memory was playing video games. And so then my daughter started playing video games at 4 or 5. And so I was really excited to share that experience with all of my kids. And so it's been tough for me to make that adjustment. So thank you for providing context for that. And excited to learn, what you've seen in the space that has been solutions or examples of solutions? I know you said like address the underlying cause or trigger, and then hopefully we can all get back to playing video games again.
Yeah, and then I think too, you can find what works for your family, but I can share what's worked in my family is I have a 5-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter, and we try to make our gaming as social as possible within our family system. So we I don't have like a hard rule on this, but we tend to play the Switch games together on the TV so that it's like a family thing and it's the four of us playing. There are times like on weekends where I'll let them play like on the console by themselves, but generally we kind of have the philosophy of like toys and games are tools for playing with people, and that really keeps gaming people centered. And you'll see even during the pandemic, we saw this a lot with games like Minecraft and other games as well, where the social aspect of gaming was really important, and that it really kind of comes from self-determination theory, which we can get into that if you want, but people really find that relatedness and connectedness as being an essential part of their gaming experience. So I would say like families can find their own ways to game together, and then when my kids have had a little too much gaming, we switch it up. So I've brought out some board games, we taught them some card games, and then we'll get back to the video games as well.
And my apologies about the internet, but what's the earliest age you've seen like addiction happening from a gaming standpoint for children? And then number two, what are some of the signs that parents can identify early before it gets out of control?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know exactly when the earliest it would be possible for a child to be addicted. So neither Vanessa or I are trained psychologists. We work with them, they're on our teams, but we don't have that firsthand knowledge. But signs of addiction of video games are similar to signs of addiction with anything really, where it's you can't go without it. It's getting in the way of things in your life, goals you want to accomplish, maybe in drastic cases like issues of self-care, like we've seen in certain in cafe culture in certain like China and Korea. But it's the same thing as if you had a struggle with alcohol, right? And that's getting in the way, and you can't do it in moderation. You can't have it around you. So those are very those are very distinct kind of issues. But as Vanessa's pointed out, it's usually not the gaming that's causing it. It's usually the mental health condition that's underlying, that's manifesting itself in this addiction. And so if you can treat that root, it should go back to healthier levels. But yeah.
And Vanessa, I love how you said, like, if it's too much, you do the board games and then kind of go back to the video games. Is it a recommended minutes a day that they should be games, or is it just, how does that look?
I kind of said this before. It's going to be different for every family system. Like I literally run a gaming startup, so my family probably games more than most families. I would hope so. I mean, I should, but I would kind of follow just as a parent, and I'm not a professional in this area, but I would kind of treat it like I would treat screen time generally, like not too much. As a teacher, I would just want to make sure, like, hey, are you getting your homework done? Are you getting your reading done? I can't really speak from like that psychology standpoint, but I could say like the psychologist on our team would probably say like, all things in moderation and balance. I don't know, Michael, do you want to weigh in?
I can tell you I was just trying to see if I could find the study because I looked at it months ago. But it was something where serious negative depression effects and negative effects on a person came from playing really an outlandish amount of video games. I mean, it would be like over 6 hours a day, for sure, which who can do that, right? And so, but we wouldn't recommend playing up to 6 hours a day, right? You've got to get exercise. You've got to have a professional life. You've got to have a family life. You've got to have emotional connections in the real world. So, it's a judgment call, right? And it's not always a standard thing. Like sometimes I've had a stressful day at work. I need to play a game maybe for 2 hours, just like you watch a movie for 2 hours, right? It's the same thing. I just won't watch a movie on top of it, right? That's my entertainment for the night. Other times it's like, take a quick 10-minute break and do a quick pick up and play game. And it's circumstantial, and what we saw with the pandemic is that this is how Americans in particular are going to video games. They're going to video games not only because it's their entertainment, but they're going to it because it's their therapy. That how many thousands of articles were written during the pandemic that said, hey, this game saved my life. Animal Crossing saved my life. Stardew Valley saved my life. Whatever game that the person was using. And, you don't talk about, just a movie that you've watched that you're like, oh, that was entertaining, it's saving your life. There's a different reason why people were going to these games, and if that habit's persisted to this very day.
And shout out to our guest last week, Marie. She enlightened us that those two games you just described are cozy games.
Yes. So, we know about those cozy games.
We were paying attention, Marie. We were paying attention.
So that's actually the kind of game that our company makes. So we're focused really on cozy games, and in fact, we're one of the plans for our business is to have a subscription platform that actually has a lot of cozy games and a lot of mental health games on it. That's where we're going as a company. So we're big believers that those are good for your mental health.
Mario, I think we lost your audio. He's going to work on the audio. While he's doing that, shout out to everybody who's viewing live on all the platforms. Let us know where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions for Michael or Vanessa, please send them in the chat. Joe over in Texas supporting us. Thanks, Joe. We see you. Let us know. We get some of those messages in here. We're happy to answer those questions. How do you feel about the World Health Organization doing basically like a 180 on their stance about video games? I remember for years, I think there's probably record of me on LinkedIn clowning the World Health Organization for saying that video games are bad. And then after the pandemic, like they had an entire report where it was like the number one recommendation: make sure you're playing video games.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we would say better late than never. And I would also say, like, what I love more than anything is like the video game community being like, we were right. Like, I do love that because like we all knew. And I will say, I will totally call myself out on this. Like as a middle school teacher, I was one of those teachers that was like, oh, these kids are playing too many video games. And I was part of that generation of new teachers that was given an iPad and just told like, okay, we'll teach with this. Everyone needs to have like immersive tech at all times. And so I got really disillusioned from like all things electronic for a while. So I came back to gaming during the pandemic myself. So I mean, I'm happy the World Health Organization is back. I'm glad that they're acknowledging that we need innovative solutions that reach a diverse, broad group of people, because we're not saying like video games are going to replace your mental health treatment. We're just saying that this is a great supplement to the treatment that you're already going to have. So I say like, we're glad that they're back. Let's go.
Yeah. What's so interesting is how many, so we were part of this National Science Foundation program over the summer where we had to conduct dozens of interviews with people who could be a potential customer for our business. And when we talk to a lot of these mental health care providers, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, et cetera, you would be shocked at how many use video games already in their practice. Like whether it be Tetris, whether it be Animal Crossing. We became acquaintances with someone at a conference in New York who actually runs a company where you play games with psychologists. That's the meeting point for you to be matched with them. So you talk about the World Health Organization taking a 180. It's like the mental health community has already realized this, and that's why we exist, to meet that demand. No one's meeting this demand for games that really help with mental health, but it's already happening. They're already moving forward in that direction. So it's an interesting time to watch this space.
Well, and then I think I just shared this on my LinkedIn a couple of days ago, but the Entertainment Software Association just did a study on this. And again, it's one study, so read multiple studies, please. But they're saying, I mean, most Americans are turning to video games for their mental health, whether they're helping or not. I mean, the time will tell, and we've seen there are more emerging studies that suggest that games are good for you, but we need more research, of course. But we know that this is a place where many people globally, especially Americans, are going for their mental health. So with that information, like Michael and I feel very compelled to seize this opportunity, at the nexus of gaming and mental health.
So as you talk about your clients, so is your client base more like the in-game user, like the regular player, or is it more the psychologist, the therapist, and kind of going that way and having them introduce the game from a therapy standpoint? What's a dream customer?
Yeah, so we go straight to the consumer. So we're straight to the consumer brand, but we have a distribution channel that is the mental health care providers. So they can distribute that to the consumer, in addition to all the other ways that you'd see a video game company market to their audiences and get games in their hands, Steam or the eStore or something like that. So in particular, our initial audience is really that cozy gaming. Sometimes it's called, there's a community called wholesome gamers. It's that population, and we'll be branching out from there, but that's where we're starting.
Okay. From a feedback standpoint, because I know, of course, you had to do some type of market research as you create games. Mm-hmm. Is the feedback different from an in-game consumer compared to like a mental health person? Are they what they want in the game, or some of the characteristics, lighting, and kind of the flow? Is it different from an in-game user than the actual mental health, or is it about the same?
Yeah, you know, we have these different mental health experts on our team.
Okay.
And when we have played games with them, or we played our game with them and asked them questions about it, versus when we've been at events and we've had public demos and had people come and play our prototype that we've created here. Yeah, I mean, they're looking at it through a different lens, right? They're looking at it from a point of inquiry, from a point of verification and efficacy, and then the consumer is like, is this fun? And this is why it's so important that we have both. We have both classic, good, solid game design principles to make this a fun game, and then we also have that mental health component, because what you see in this space, we're not the only people who've thought of this, but what you see in the space is most are like weighted on one side or the other. So either you're going to have a game and it's like, oh, here's a game and here's a little psychology just peppered into it, but it's a game and we didn't really take much time to dig in deep to the mechanics and the language and the representations in the game. Or vice versa, where it's like, hey, I'm a psychologist. I have this real heady principle I want to do, and can you gamify it? And no one enjoys it, right? It's like this boring game. It really is that marriage of the two from the onset that's really unique about our company, as far as what I can tell.
Okay.
You've got the same challenge then that the Web3 gaming ecosystem has.
Yeah, nah. That's a conversation. The Bitcoin versus, well, we're not going to talk about that. Yeah.
I'm eager to hear from the folks who are in the chat. Let us know what games you're playing when you want to de-stress. I'd like to see if we have some more competitive games or the more cozy games. And then while they're doing that, Michael and Vanessa, I know in games like, what's the game? Not Stardew Valley. The other game we were just talking, Animal Crossing. Your mini games in there like fishing. I could see how that might become more competitive than not competitive. Do you feel like adding competitive elements ruins the goal that you're trying to achieve because of what we all recognize as some of the negative attributes of like highly competitive games like Call of Duty?
I'll take the first part of this, Vanessa, and you might have some thoughts on it as well. I don't know if it ruins it, but I can tell you it's way harder, right? And it requires, I think, having any sort of competitive or really any social element, introducing real people into a game where it's not a single player experience, that complicates things infinitely when you're trying to be careful about mental health. And there are companies that work with you to kind of safeguard those spaces. So for right now, like, we're focused on single player, but we will be doing multiplayer in the future, just when our company is big enough to handle that, So not impossible, but a lot harder.
And then just as far as like competitive games versus cozier games, I think it really depends on the person. Right now, I don't think there's really strong research that suggests either way. Like, one is definitely like better for you than not. I think that what we're finding is like games are good for you and sometimes for different reasons. For example, I think Tetris, there's all these studies out about Tetris and how it can be really impactful for like PTSD. And then we obviously know like Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing got people through the pandemic, and there's more studies coming out about games like that. But even for me personally, like, there are days when I go to, I'm a big Nintendo girl, so like Mario Kart is always going to just be it for me. And then there's also days when Stardew Valley is that's just the one I need. And then I took like a pretty long break from Stardew and just got back into it. So I think it's like finding the right game for the right moment, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we have a chat also. Terry Turok, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but Minecraft, love competitive games when collaborating is the key to collective money. Yeah.
Love that. Yep. He's 100% right.
My daughter loves some Minecraft. Is it a way a person can actually differentiate between like healthy gaming habits and problematic gaming behaviors? Like, is it a way you guys or the mental, the people that work for you guys, as you create the games, can you do that, or each person is different?
Yeah, there are mechanics. There are certain key mechanics that you can put in that are going to be more positive, that have been proven to be positive, that are in games and they might be surprising. So we were just talking about, cozy games versus competitive games. And you know what? There have been studies that have suggested that first-person shooters are some of the most effective games at doing good for your mental health. Like, that's some of the best stress relievers. Yeah. So it's not always it can be surprising what these mechanics are. But again, like the behaviors that indicate whether it's a positive or a negative relationship to gaming. I mean, number one, we pay attention and we ask the question, how do you feel? What is the affect this game is causing on you? What is your body and your mind telling you? And if you come away from our games feeling crappy, feeling stressed, feeling like you're in a bad place, we're failing, and we're not doing our mission. So you have to listen. You have to know yourself, right? If games are having a negative effect on you, if it's making you depressed, if it's ruining your social life, if it's not making you a better person, then then the game is probably the wrong game for you, or maybe your approach to it, or again, maybe there's underlying reasons that you have to address before you get back into gaming.
And kind of on that note, like I got my husband Tears of the Kingdom for Father's Day, and there was a moment when I had to be like, "Hey, babe, can you fold some laundry?" But also it's like for me, I've got a family, and so that's like a really great built-in accountability system where I can kind of check in, and then it forces me to like look outward a little bit and just say, "Hey, is there a game we can play together that I can still kind of get my needs met?" And then also sometimes straight up, mom just needs to play some Stardew, and I just need 30 minutes by myself. You know what I mean? So I think it's balancing it out, and it's like having people in your life who don't belittle the fact that you game, because I know sometimes gamers, like we take a lot of heat from people, like, oh, that's what kids do, or like, I used to game but then I grew up and now I don't know, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just so condescending, but if you have people in your life that like respect gaming as like a part of a healthy routine, then you get your gaming time in, and kind of like people who go play D&D, like that's really big, like it's kind of like that too, just keep it in check.
It's funny you say that example of gaming being demeaned is something like kids do. Amir Satbot on LinkedIn, who was on the show, on the podcast a few episodes back, he said that he's actually, I think, en route to go attend BlizzCon. So he went to the airport. He had his Nintendo Switch with him. He was playing the new Mario game, Super Mario Wonder or something. I don't know the full title. He said the person to the left of him was reading a Harry Potter book, and then demeaned him and said, like, "You're playing, isn't that a game for kids?" Like while he's reading a Harry Potter book.
Right.
That's funny. That's
rude.
Funny. Yeah. So we have a question from Des Nair. So cozy games generally attracts more women in POC than other genres. Can you talk about the power of cozy games to appeal to a more diverse audience?
Yeah. Well, first of all, hi to Dev, and hope San Francisco is treating you well. We just talked to Dev a couple weeks ago. He's 100% right, and that's also missional for us. That's another reason why we have cozy games, because cozy games are broadening the audience for video games in general, and making it accessible not only to people of color, to women, but also to older populations as well. So older people in their 40s, like me, old people in their 50s. They play these games because again, it's stressful. It doesn't rely on these intense. It's not Doom, right? It's not Doom Eternal where you're running around and it's stressful and there's rapid movement everywhere. But when you look at the influencers, when you look at who's on YouTube and who's on Twitch talking about cozy games, yeah, I see a lot of women of color like are really leading the way and leading this conversation, which we think is wonderful. And we want to make gaming more inclusive and bring people from every area into it, and that's also missional for us.
Yeah, and I think if you look at gaming as like a different form of rest, like as a way to have that self-care, I really think it makes sense that women and people of color are kind of leading the way in that, because it's like, hey, this is self-care. This is like what we're taking time for ourselves to just relax and engage, and yeah, I just think it's a really positive thing.
Yeah. So from a gaming creation standpoint, typically, how long is the process from the thought of it to actually having it created? Like, how long is that process? What are some things? Because I know a person creates a game, they want to create a game, they want to drive revenue. Yeah. You're doing this more to kind of help from a specific niche in a mental health space. So, like, kind of walk us through that process.
Games can be in what we call like a pre-production stage. for decades if you want them to be, right? It's like you can there is and there's different approaches. There's a standard way to make a video game, but there's also different nuances to every way you approach it. And Vanessa and I are newbies to this, but we have some people on our team who have made, hundreds of video games literally in their life. So we've had a good mentorship in this area. For us, because we're not just taking an idea of our own. Like, we do have an idea, we have a starting idea, we have a vision for a game, but we're not just taking that and then executing on it. We also have to get the input of different mental health experts. We also have to do our own research. There's I'd almost say like an academic component to what we're doing. There's an element of that in how we approach the earliest stages of the game. So that we've come up with a pretty good process, I think, though, where that doesn't hold us back. Because video games take a long time no matter what. Whether you're making the simplest 2D platformer or you're making, something more significant, a good design can take a while. And so we came up with a good process to make sure that there's seamless progression no matter what. Even as we integrate those elements into our research, we can continue to make progress so that we're not just stuck, in one area while we say, okay, what does this mechanic do? How do we prove this? What's our research plan around it? So for us, I will say this, for our prototype and for our first game, it only took about 2 to 3 months of documentation, getting all the art in place, doing some white boxing to really get us on the path to producing the prototype that we have now.
Okay.
We've got another question that's coming from the chat from Vlad Andre Arventi. He says, how do you judge which game is adapted to which age before trying it?
Well, there's the ESRB ratings, right? So you can see if it's rated teen or if it's rated mature. That's a good question. I don't know if there's a universal way to judge it. Like, for instance, my daughter has been playing Japanese RPGs since she has been 6, right? So she played games like a game Octopath Traveler, which is a notoriously hard JRPG. Like, it requires a lot of strategy and thinking. When she was 9, I think, 8 or 9, which is a lot earlier than most people would play it. And I'll just brag about my daughter in front of all of you because that's what, I'm live, so why not? But I don't know if that's typical, right? And then there's other, like, my son likes to do games that are more creative, and so he couldn't do Octopath Traveler. He couldn't do a strategic JRPG where the battle, you have to really be thoughtful about it. But my daughter probably couldn't do what he does when he does games that are more creative and building worlds and all that. So it depends. What I'm saying is it depends on the personality of the child, and each, we know there's theories around, like, what are you attracted to as a gamer? Like, we all play games differently, right? There's people that want to push the boundaries. There's people that want to just get the story out of the way. There's all sorts of different ways of approaching it. So
my brother plays Ragnarok,
God of War
Ragnarok on the most, like, the most difficult setting.
Mm-hmm.
For the personal sense of accomplishment of having, like, fully finished the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though it makes it the game, it takes him 4 times as long to beat the game because basically, like, 3 or 4 hits and you're dead, right? So he'll go through that because, like, that's the challenge he wants out of the game.
Yeah, that's not my style, but I like people that do that.
Well, I talked about Tears of the Kingdom before, but, like, watching my husband play, where, like, he wants to beat the main narrative first, and then my daughter is playing it, and she just turned 8, and so she's trying to do all these side quests. Like, she just lives for those, and, like, that just really makes the story come alive for her. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
So, and I know we talked about first shooter, like, so some of those types of games from the outside looking in, thought process would, like, that would, like, hurt your mental illness because people are being killed, and like, so talk about that psychologist. Like, how is that viewed, or how could that be viewed as bettering your mental health instead of worsening it?
Mm-hmm. Vanessa, you've read up on this.
Yeah, and again, like, we're not the psychologists. Our teammates are, and they're amazing. But I think people tend to push boundaries in video games, and so you in a video game, you're, like, the character is is often seen as an extension of you. And I think, again, Stardew Valley is like the perfect example of that, because you're kind of cultivating your farm, and like you probably chose your own name, to make your character. So it kind of makes sense. But then when it comes to like the first person shooters, I do think, it's just, you're pushing limits a little bit. I don't know exactly, like the exact like theory behind it, but I know a lot of the research behind, behind the first person shooters being bad for you. The research was discounted, and it was just bad scientific methods. And so there needs to be more research in that area. And I know a lot of it too is like a lot of the positive aspects tend to be with like helping you eye-hand coordination and stuff like that.
Yeah. So when you think about a first person shooter, like strip away the aesthetics, strip away the people, and like, what are you doing in your most base element of it? Well, you're zoning in on something, right? And getting into almost like a flow state of like focus and identifying objects. And those flow states are good for your mental health. It's good to get into those states. So whether the representation is, you're shooting people, that's been proven to not really have an effect. It's not going to make you more violent. It's not going to make you any more violent than watching an action movie would, right? Or watching a TV show. But it's that flow state. It's the mechanic. It's the engagement. It's the eye-hand coordination that really can help your mental health.
Yeah, and then I think too, it's probably similar to like playing, like playing a game or playing a sport, right? Like it's like that focus, like Michael said, you're just really locked in on something, and it feels good to have that sense of accomplishment. And I think one of the things like I really like about gaming is like, if I have a lot of stress going on in my life, sometimes I just need to solve a smaller problem before I solve a bigger problem that's like real to me. So I think you kind of get that sense of accomplishment.
Okay. So another question. So what role does maybe like education and awareness play in addressing, game-related mental health challenges? So like if it's if somebody does something stupid and it hurts.
We had a little blip there. He'll be back. While we're waiting on him to come back, have you heard about? Actually, he's back. I would have asked the question. Go ahead, Mario. Mario, I gotta. You go with your question. I got another one.
No, the internet does not want me to address these issues. I don't know what it is. No. I would just say in general, from an education standpoint, what role does education and awareness play in addressing kind of gaming related incidents, and what can educators do a better job of to make sure that some incidents that we see on TV doesn't happen?
Oh, I was just going to say, this is a perfect opportunity, like to plug the great work over at Take This. Like they just came out with a study on toxicity in gaming. So a lot of like the negative mental health issues surrounding gaming come from the gaming communities. Unfortunately, it should be a great space to be, and often for a lot of people, it's just not. And that can be, for women, the BIPOC community. There's, obviously issues of anti-Semitism and other issues, as well. Like there's, the LGBTQ community experiences hate as well. And so just preparing your child to say, okay, well, if you're entering into a space like this and you see this happening, how do you want to handle it? Are you going to tell me about it? And just making sure your kid's ready to let you know when they experience something like that, or when they see it happening to someone else. And then a lot of really basic social emotional skills as well that you'd probably learn in like kindergarten, like in Minecraft, for example. If you didn't build it, don't break it. And I think we forget that sometimes. It's just like the sandbox rules.
I'll add on to that too. One thing is everything Vanessa said, I completely agree with. And of course there has to be just fundamental education about what do healthy habits look like, and how do you recognize it in yourself and others. But then there's this inverse side of things where there's a shame factor. You mentioned Amir's the flight he was on, right?
Yeah.
And the person's like, oh, why are you playing this game? And you can talk as an adult who's a professional. You can talk about being a gamer and get shamed for that. And you say, oh, really? Did you watch 8 hours of football on Sunday, and you're going to shame me for playing an hour of video games? Like, like they should know that most people video game. You're not, so don't be shamed by it. It's not for losers. The richest people in the world, the most successful people in the world, often play video games. Why? For their mental health, because they're stressed, right? Everyone does it across every level of society. So you're not uncommon, and it is good for you. It's just like the way we're convinced. It's like, it's not a replacement for these things, but it's a complement to exercise. It's a complement to eating right. It's a complement to positive mental habits. And it's not like something that's just something you do. It's integrated with that as part of your mental health self-care. And it's okay to say that. It's okay to talk about that because psychologists are using it that way. The people that know this, there's dozens of research papers being published every year about this. It's a fact. It's just not believed because there's a negative stigma against gamers in society.
Now, do you think that stigma is ever going to go away? Or
Yeah.
you think it's just here to stay?
How could it not? When you look at Generation Z and the amount of gaming they do, I mean, millennials certainly as they age in and become, the older kind of focus, the people that are running society, that it's going to go away. It's just people that didn't grow up with games, that's where the stigma comes from, and those that kind of bought into that stigma that was perpetuated that are younger.
Yeah, and then like the largest growing demographic of gamers right now is seniors. I think they grew like by 10 million last year. The AARP just came out with a study about that. So I think just, year over year, we're going to continue to see that lessen and lessen. And, before, Marcus, you mentioned the WHO study that was like, please video game, it helped people through the pandemic. And I think we're going to see, especially that senior demographic, think about like loneliness or, issues like that. I think we're going to see some shifts.
Yeah, I think there's already some early evidence that playing video games is helpful for some of the symptoms of Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's interesting because my mom, who's in her 60s, like I wouldn't look at her as a gamer, but like she loves Pac-Man to the point for like Mother's Day last year, we bought her like a Pac-Man arcade, and she's like, oh, I did this, So to your point, like, yeah, I think gaming is for everybody. Okay, well, all right.
What do you think about video games, businesses using video games as part of their collective mental health and wellness offering for their employees? And I'm surprised that I don't see that happening, especially from gaming companies. And then the B side of that question is, do you see mental health issues getting better in the game development space? Because crunch is a terrible thing, and I've not seen it get any better.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, let's start with the B side of that, because you see all the layoffs. I mean, Bungie just had layoffs, right? And here's the thing: the generation that's employed in most video game studios, at least the like Generation Z and certain millennials, are more prone to anxiety. That's not because of video games; it's because of a host of other factors that we could get into. But prone to anxiety. So to be in the video game space and have the volatility that's there, it's hard. It's hard for people that already have that disposition. And then you lay on top of that there has been cultures of crunch. I've at least heard more people acknowledging this and trying to do their best to not have it. I mean, there are certain situations, video games are incredibly hard to make. And you can be the best producer in the world. You can have the best project timeline. Things will go off rails, guaranteed. That's going to have some stress, but it's up to companies to understand that and then say, okay, what about the rest of the time? How am I making this a great working environment for our team? How am I making this a great working environment for our team and making sure that, there's going to be stressful moments, but overall, the feeling that they have in this company is a good one, and their mental health is good, and they can get through these little blips sometimes that have to happen.
Okay, and just I guess context for that, the first part of that question, like everywhere that I've worked before I left working 9 to 5 to do consulting full time, I worked on the tech team, and most people who were on the tech team played video games, and so we regularly organized like game nights, like maybe it was every other Friday, and it helped us deal with the work stress. It made us able to trust each other more, right? So I'm just surprised that I don't see that happening in more businesses, especially because video games can be done like both virtually and asynchronously.
Right. I agree. I don't have a good answer for that, but I hope that when we make games for mental health, that they buy a bunch of them from us.
Yeah, I would love to see our games, be out there for people to use and to de-stress during work and even to bring communities together. That would be great.
what type of initiative you think businesses should have? Because of course, it's like I have a stressful job, right? There's a lot of stressful jobs out there, and I'm pretty sure I know it's benefits to gaming. So like, what can companies do, or what can I guess the community do to push companies towards pushing people to the game, even maybe doing business?
I think he was going to say business hours.
Yeah.
Well, when I was a teacher, there was another teacher. Shout out to Katie. She knows who she is. We'd play Mario Kart on like an old school N64, and like I'm not kidding when I say teaching middle school was so stressful. And we were in Seattle, Washington, and loved it, loved the job, loved the school, loved the kids. But sometimes you just need to blow off some steam, and I just think like having that available to employees, and I don't even know that it has to be that structured, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure you could do tournaments and stuff. And like, I would love to see like, esports maybe be integrated in some way, because I think that could be really cool. But man, it was so unstructured and it was awesome.
Yeah, I would think if an attorney loses a big case, like what better way just the game to kind of just, it's okay, Play Mario Kart. It's okay. You might spin off with a banana, but you'll be okay.
Well, because not to be super dark about it, but I mean, what do people usually do straight up? Like they go out to bars. I'm not saying it's bad to like go out and blow off steam at a bar, but like personally, I'm sober, and like I've been sober for over 3 years, and for me, like that's not going to help me. Like going out to a bar, like I can't unwind that way, and I know other people who are trying to limit their alcohol consumption and build healthier habits, and I think there's this tendency like when things hit the fan, we just like kind of go inward, and like maybe that's okay for a while, but I think the video games would draw people out and help them process together. Maybe, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true too. Now, to your point, when something goes bad, the first thing they do is turn towards a vice like alcohol or pop pills, and so I definitely agree with that. Yeah, definitely agree. Definitely agree. And look what we got here. We got a little gamer.
Guest of honor. Yeah.
He's up from his little nap here, but it looks like he's going to doze off here.
So what do you guys see the short term, long term? So what do you guys see the growth of the company 2 years from now and in 5 years from now?
Yeah. So right now we're in a situation where we're in the middle of a capital raise, right? Like we're doing the raise thing, which is not easy. It's akin to just hitting your head against a 2x4 every couple of weeks, right? It's awful, but we're in the middle of it. We're trying to find great partners. And once we're able to do that, once we're able to raise enough money to make things operational, I had mentioned that, we're not just a company that's making games and putting them on the market. Like we are doing that, but that's not just what we're doing. We're building a whole subscription and niche subscription platform. The subscription industry is so ripe for disruption. And we're going to be doing that in a way that really can help people. And so I think that, over the next 2 to 5 years, I would expect to see a lot of building. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it thoughtfully and intentionally. But I'll be bullish on our own company. I think there's going to be some big growth, especially as we get our products finalized and out there over the next couple of years.
Now, when you say subscription is meant for disruption, like what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I mean, think of all the subscription services that we have, right? We've got HBO, we've got Netflix, we have Apple, and then you look at the video game side of things. Netflix has a component of that. Apple Arcade is there. There's Game Pass, which I love. I use every day, right? But these are done by giant companies that are not able to really focus on a distinct user need, right? Like they've got to be all things to all people. And so I think the wave of the future is you're going to see niche platforms coming out that it's just like everything. Think of the internet, right? Think of how the internet splintered into little pockets, right? There's not one ubiquitous place. There's little pockets, little affinity groups. The same thing will happen with these platforms, and we're going to be there to produce one that is for people's mental health. It's where you go. You want to play games. You want to have access to dozens of games. Great. But these games are also going to help you, and they're going to be the kinds of games you probably already gravitate towards anyway. So, that's the plan.
Now, so you said raise. Are you guys on your Series A, or are you still doing friends and family round?
Yeah, we're a seed round right now. So we raised a family and friends round just under a year ago now, and we're doing our seed round.
Okay, yeah. And so as I know I'm going to talk about it, but I one of the companies I co-own, we done friends and family, and we're going through the process the next year, hoping to raise in between 5 to 10 mil. And to your point, it's very, very tough. So tell the public how tough it is and some of the obstacles, also some of the successes when it comes to raising money.
We're very tired, I will say that. So some of the challenges we faced have included just a lot of investors are just they're not as familiar with gaming, and it doesn't mean they're bad investors. It doesn't mean that they're not smart. It just means that investing in gaming is new to them, and so we're finding that we have to be really savvy with how we position ourselves, and then also kind of at the same time. Some people are really excited about the digital health side of what we're doing, and we are too. I mean, we think we can honestly chip away at health inequity in some way, just because games are so accessible to people in rural and in urban communities and kind of everywhere in between. And so just like kind of like figuring out how to position ourselves has been a challenge, because being in the Midwest, it's a little bit different than the coast, and so we've had to figure out how to make sure we're telling our story the right way. And I think we've grown a lot in that, and candidly, we still have some growth to do.
Yeah,
I have two questions. One, have you considered working with a publisher? And then the follow-up question is, have you considered equity crowdfunding?
Yeah, great question. So starting with the publisher question, yeah, and we love publishers. Like, we're friendly with many publishers out there, but in general, publishers are, they're not a necessity. They're not required anymore, right? You can self-publish. And why would you not go with a publisher? Well, for us, you can tell by the idea behind our company. Yes, we're making games, but we have something more, right? That we're doing on top of that. And we need to be liquid as a company. We need to have cash flow coming in. And when you work with a publisher, it doesn't matter how, they're going to have to get their money back. They're going to have to get their investment back, which maybe they'll get you more sales, but maybe not, right? And I often find the ideal fit for a publisher are these studios where you just want to make the games, right? You're like, it's like neither Vanessa and I are like the lead devs, right? We're not like the programmers. We're not. I have a marketing background. Vanessa has a marketing background. Vanessa's got venture capital relationships in her background. Like she's all these. We can do all the things that a publisher would do. Internally, we're willing to do it. We're not just a team that's like, I don't want to think about the business side of things, right? And that's what a lot of them are. And there's not faulting anyone for that, but that's just the perspective. So yeah, that's not necessarily for us. Now, would we take project-based funding in a different way? There are some other like project funds out there that are kind of a hybrid between like a venture capital or a publisher. Yeah, that's a little different. I think we'd be open to something like that, given the terms, but. And then equity crowdfunding was the other kind of question. Yeah, that's interesting. We've thought about that. We definitely have thought about that. And our minds change basically every couple of weeks about that topic. I mean, there's pros and cons. There's a thought. And I don't think this is fair, but there's a thought sometimes that's for people that have failed at traditional VC, right? Like that there's a stigma put on people that do that sort of crowdfunding. I don't think that's a fair stigma. I actually think it's probably the wave of the future, but I also think it's hard to do. And it's like, which hard thing do we want to put our attention on right now? Because we only have so much time. So yeah, something we're thinking about.
It's interesting. I used equity crowdfunding with my company, MetaArena. So I've been trying to raise venture capital for 10 years. My last company I had for 7 years. And in that 7-year time frame, I only raised $5,000 in accredited investment. And I had been to pitch competitions in 6 states. Wow. I went through 4 startup accelerators, 2 of them globally ranked, and I was only able to raise $5,000. So then I went to equity crowdfunding. And we raised, and this isn't like millions of dollars, but compared to the $5,000 that took me 7 years to raise, we raised $63,000 in 2.5 weeks. Wow. So I'll vouch for that. I'll also say that I know of at least one, I think maybe 3 or 4 funds that raised their money via equity crowdfunding.
Interesting.
So I think that stigma it might still be there. Yeah. I'm not saying it's gone, but funds are using it because they recognize that you're leveraging scale.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I would ask you to consider it.
Yeah.
There are two different like ones that were like not to name drop, but like Start Engine, they let everybody who invests be on your cap table, which I personally wouldn't recommend. But I know like the platform I used, WeFunder, they use what's called a SPV, special purpose vehicle, where basically all of the investors become one line on your cap table.
Got it. Wow, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can chat with you more about it offline.
Yeah, and so Vanessa, I guess so. You on the VC side, tell the people, just talk to us about like the fine line, because of course as a startup, it's not a lot of cash, but then like if somebody wants cash flow to attract investors, like how is that process and how those conversations?
So, and let me know if I'm answering this. So, are you saying like for the investors? I'll kind of say it like this. Right now, it's been really tough to raise right now because it feels like in the last like 5 to 10 years, it seemed like a bit of a golden age for startups where all you had to do was show like super high growth, and we know that's not true for everyone, and I know it also wasn't easy, but you basically just had to show that you were poised for lots of growth, and that seemed to be enough. Obviously, you had to show that you were, legit, but that seemed to be enough to get funding. And now we're seeing that a lot of the venture firms that we've talked to they want to see like, okay, how much revenue do you have?
Right.
EBITDA, like what, show us that you're profitable. And like that seems like, it feels like it's changed really fast, but honestly, I think the writing's been on the wall for a while.
Yeah, and that was my question, because again, having clients that we help with that are trying to get funding, clients that maybe got funding 2 or 3 years ago, it definitely seems like the money's out there, but the money's not being spent and it's not being invested like it was.
It's been tough. Like one of our first pitches was like the day of the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. So that's just kind of how we got. I would call it baptism by fire, but that's just kind of how we've got. It was our hazing, I guess. So, so we're, honestly, we're just trying to show progress through, we get some grant funding here and there that we're still using the friends and family round. We actually just won a pitch competition. Shout out to the Michigan Founders Fund. So we're using the money that we are getting to advance our milestones, and that's, showing progress. And then eventually we'd like to be able to show some revenue and show that progress as well. But, this is a tougher time to raise money, and we're just trying to keep our heads up.
Have you considered what's it called? Subscription funding, like a Patreon situation? I know you're building your own platform, right? So I'm not saying obviously that's not going to be anywhere close to the value that you would bring from your own platform. But if there are people in your core community who say, like, I support what you're doing, but I don't have enough, I don't have $1,000 to invest in equity crowdfunding, but I can give you $5 a month for the next 3 years, right?
We have looked into that. We will be doing that. Especially closer to the launch of our first game, we're gonna open up, because when you do, we'll probably do some sort of a crowdfunding platform for that. But when you do it, you've got to have enough material, to show. You've got to show progress, and we're early on in our company. It's our first game we're designing, so we don't want to open the doors just yet, because we're making, we figured some things out, but we're figuring things out, and so we don't want to open the doors too much in that way. But yes, that is on the roadmap. But you mentioned Patreon in particular, and yes, that's a different kind of angle on it, and something we should probably consider, and something we've talked about, but probably need to revisit.
Yeah, when my last company crashes, we pivoted into esports. Like my brother and I launched the Patreon, and there were folks in, friends and family, folks from school, folks from our professional community who wanted to understand like behind the scenes of what was happening with the company. And it was traumatic, but I was very transparent what was happening. And so I think that there are people, while I understand and appreciate what you're saying, you want the end product to be a level of polish before maybe it goes to the wider consumer market. I think that there are people who would pay for the privilege of seeing it along its journey, right? The Blu-ray DVD experience.
That's fair.
Yeah, and because we see like the Kanye West documentary a couple of years ago. Like it was wonderful to kind of see where he was and kind of where he became. Now bumps in the road across the way though, but like would it be great, and it would be so many people that would just pay for seeing that process as it happened. So I think that's a great idea. What about grants? I know, Vanessa, you talked about grants. Can you tell people about the power of grants? Why grants can be effective when it comes to helping grow a business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start this one, and Michael, feel free to add some color. But grants have been really helpful to us. And I'll go ahead and name drop Ann Arbor Spark. Like the state of Michigan and the city of Ann Arbor, where we're based, has been really helpful in helping us.
Are y'all Michigan fans?
Well, I have to be. My husband
Oh
works with.
Lord, what
Hey.
going here?
Okay, so I'm.
Thank you all for attending.
Yeah, I know.
Are you from Columbus or something? I mean, usually that's like some Ohio State stuff. Are you for real? Are you for real?
I am
Okay.
a huge Buckeye fan.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. And the internet conveniently cut out right when he was about to say that. Okay. Well, yeah. So yeah.
At least I don't got no signs behind me. You could be stealing them, so I'm not gonna worry about that.
Oh, okay. Hey, I heard that's just called scouting, and they didn't know anything about it. Okay. It's funny. So actually, I live 5 minutes from the big house, and I've seen Jim Harbaugh driving like out and about, and he almost hit my car one time. Yeah, so grants, Ann Arbor, the city of Ann Arbor, really great at helping us get connected here. And then we're looking at some of the NSF grants, this one called the SBIR, Small Business Grants. Basically, the appeal of a grant is that it's non-dilutive funding, and then it really forces us to have our act together. Like we have to demonstrate that how we're using these funds, and it's been a really good. Michael, it's been stressful. We can tell the truth. Sure. It's been really stressful, but we have great support here in Michigan, helping us get through it. But these grants, our hope is that they'll help us advance our product, and we don't have to get real specific. But like, for example, the SBIR, we can't use that for commercialization, but that's like a huge part of our research and a huge part of us developing an MVP. And I don't need to get too technical, but it helps us really make sure that our idea is solid, and that's important because that leads to us having a sustainable business model. And so, we talked about some of like the layoffs and like the dark side of the gaming industry. And that's a huge priority for us. It's one of our values is sustainability. So I think ultimately having that non-dilutive funding to balance out our, hopefully what we get from investors, it really shows that we're being wise with our resources and stewarding them well. So I don't know, Michael, you want to add anything to that?
No, that's exactly, yeah. I support you. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
That's awesome. And so, can you also tell from a business standpoint, like how much time and effort goes into research, right? So a lot of people think you create a company and you got this idea and you create this product, but tell people like how important it is for research, how much time you guys are spending on research to even put the game to production.
Yeah. The research for us has not stopped. Right. So, and again, we've gotten to the point of a prototype for our first game, and we just got a second influx of grant money and winnings from the pitch competition. So we can do a little bit more work on that. But, we won't be able to go full steam ahead until we're funded as a company. Right. So, the research hasn't really stopped for us. We're taking this time where we have little starts and stops in the development process to really understand more about game design, to understand more about psychology, to understand about how this all works together. And so, we're lifelong learners. Both Vanessa and I came from education backgrounds, and I think that that's going to be just part of the ethos of our company is always having some element of continually discovering and continually to research around what we're doing.
I'm sorry, Marcus, you had a question. My apologies.
No, I didn't have a question. You're good.
Okay. All right. So the real question is, what's going to be the ban on Michigan? Are they going to get a death penalty? Were there going to be no bowls for 10 years? Is Harbaugh going to get fired? That's the real question.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know. Straight up, like around town, it actually has been kind of like a non-issue around here, which is silly to me. Like it's all just silly to me. But yeah, it sounds like it's like serious, right? Like, I should know more. I don't. My husband fills me in, and like I do watch sports, but yeah, I just haven't been paying as much attention. But so you're an Ohio State guy?
Yeah, of course. Okay. The last time at home that Ohio State beat Michigan, I was actually at that game. So yeah, I'm definitely an Ohio State fan, and on the Ohio State side, we're definitely happy that this is going on right now. We're just, we got our popcorn, just sitting back, watching everything happen.
Yeah, well, so I lived in St. Louis, Missouri for a couple years, and I thought like Cubs Cardinals was like a pretty big rivalry, and then I moved here and was like, wait, like these people, like it is real. Like the Michigan Ohio State hate is real, and it is funny to me. Like I'm just here watching. So.
Definitely good. It's already 10 o'clock. Time flies. It's already 10 o'clock.
Time flies.
Christmas. Oh boy.
Well, thank you all for just this awesome conversation around the importance of video games and mental health. I think neither one of those two topics are getting enough airtime. So thank you for indulging us. Before we go, we have one ask for you. Can you let us know from somebody that you may have seen in the comments who really had the best question? And I probably should have prepped you for that before the show, but we like to give a free copy of both Mario's book and my book for the best questions and engagement during the show. And then whoever has the best bet for the rock, paper, scissors game, but obviously we didn't do that today. So next time when you come back, when you have an update on your game, if you just pick someone, they'll win those free copies.
Vanessa, it's ladies' choice.
Oh man, I got to go with my guy Dev. Like he's, talking about the power of cozy games appealing to a diverse audience. Like I got to go with it.
Excellent. So congratulations, Dev. We'll get that to you. Or Dez? You said
Dev, D-E-V.
Dev. Okay, Dev. We'll get those over to you. Thanks for joining us on the show. And then before we leave, Michael and Vanessa, let us know where we can continue to support you, follow you, what you have going on between here and the end of the year. Just major updates.
Yeah, BetterPlayStudios.com is our website, and you can sign up for a mailing list. We send out a newsletter when we remember to, but it's fairly
monthly,
month-ish, right? And then follow us on LinkedIn, BetterPlay Studios. We also have a Twitter account, or X, I guess it's called now. So those
BetterPlay Inc. Yeah, BetterPlay Inc. on X. And then just reach out to us. We always respond.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And then Mario, where can everyone follow you, support you?
Yep. So on my Instagram, Painful Profits. Profits sometimes can be painful, but if we make money, we're happy. So PAYNEFUL Profits, or just Google Mario Payne. I'll pop up. So I'm just happy to talk football when it comes to Michigan fans, because typically they get a little bit rowdy. So I'm happy, and definitely congratulations. I think what you guys are doing are amazing. You're going to impact children and adults in a positive way, and you really can't put a price on that. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you both. This is really fun.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you for your time. We'll send you more updates as we have it. Next week, we hope you'll join us. We have Ace Patterson, an indie game developer, building 5 Mics. It's a card game that is a mix between basically like Pokemon and hip hop.
Awesome.
Right? So like you're playing Magic the Gathering or something where it's Outcast versus 8 Mile.
Oh wow.
Or not 8 Mile, G-Unit. Yeah. 8 Mile's a movie. Oh, yeah. It's a right. Eminem.
Michigan.
It's been a long day, not enough caffeine.
Talk about that real quick. You talk about great business. Eminem just made his spaghetti sauce. I don't know if you guys heard that, right?
Spaghetti?
Yes.
Right? I mean, I'm in Michigan, right? I gotta know 8 Mile.
Yes. It's called Mom's Spaghetti. One of the best lyrics ever.
That is sweater already.
Yeah.
Took him 20 years to do that. That's gold.
It's incredible. I'll buy that. Yeah. I'll try it once,
Yeah.
We'll see y'all next week. Don't forget, again, as you heard in this show, there's going to be a huge shift in how brands engage with their employees with video games, so you can get ahead of the curve. bit.ly/game-driven brand growth, free training. You'll learn about, again, 2/3 of Americans and most of the people around the world are playing video games, and examples of brands that are doing it the right way. So free training. We'll see you next week to help you level up your wealth. Y'all have a great day.
Bye, everyone.